Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is Rick Janson and Gina Madeya with Coffee with Closers for Agents. Everything you need to know in the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee, 10 minutes is what we've got. Gina, good morning, afternoon, good evening. Tell us who you are. Why should people listen?
Well, good morning, afternoon, and evening to you as well. And I'm excited to be here today because when you invited me here, one of the things that struck me in your email invitation was how important it is to help clients navigate a market with clarity and confidence. And it's as if you stole it from my website because I've been using that same moniker for a while now. And that's why people should listen. Because what I bring to the table is a spirit of education and helping clients truly understand what's happening in a market so we can lead with our best foot forward and create a win-win strategy to help you with either buying or selling a home.
I love that. I love that. So we're coaching agents right now. And on this show, in this 10 minutes, how do you communicate with your clients? When you say you're big on communication, big on education, tell us a little bit about your process and your strategy there. What can people take away and duplicate, rip off and duplicate? I'm big on R&D.
Well, I think that's super important. I think the most important thing is to recognize that the data doesn't lie. And data is necessary to understand the market. And again, craft an approach that's going to make sense. Because as you know, we've shifted dramatically, at least in my area of the greater Seattle and Puget Sound region, of being a market that heavily favored sellers. People were escalating well above asking price, waiving all their contingencies, and homes were flying off the market in a matter of days. And with the increase in inventory and the rise in interest rates, and frankly, the affordability quotient with all those homes having raised double digits for months on end, the market shifted. But what I'm seeing is this sense from both buyers and agents that it's a bloodbath and that they can approach a real estate negotiation with, in some ways, unrealistic expectations. So case in point, I have a listing that's been on the market for a whole 2 weeks, and I'm getting offers at 18% below asking price.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, exactly. And what the data says is in that same area for the last 30 days, the average amount of price reduction, either at the point of sale or prior to it going under contract, was 4%. So I try when I'm working with buyers and sellers to remind them that there's always two parties in a negotiation, and it's really important to try to understand what the needs are of that other party so that we can do something that will drive a win-win conversation versus setting you up for automatic failure or putting a bad taste in someone else's mouth, if that makes sense. And I find that helps more often than not.
It does make sense. I'm taking over a couple of expired listings right now, and looking at where they were and how they were positioned too high, right? They were positioned for the March market, and we're recording in August of 2022. But we have shifted in Denver back to a sort of a more balanced market. Now we've gone from 2 weeks of inventory to 4 weeks. Crazy, still a seller's market, right? But you can't price for a 1 week of inventory when we're at 4 weeks of inventory. It's a different seller's market. What are you experiencing up in Seattle and in the Northwest area?
It sounds very similar to what you're going through right now as well. I think that sellers have gotten the message that it's more important to price what is appropriate versus trying to push the high end of that range. But some feel that if they start at the high end of the range, there's an expectation anyway that buyers will expect them to reduce it. So then they'll just reduce it. But again, it comes back to what the data is saying and therefore what's reasonable, because a good agent on the other side will look at that same data. Unfortunately,
exactly. And consumers are getting much more educated too. I mean, when you look at the average buyer right now, they have so much data at their fingertips that they didn't have 5 years ago. And his estimates are inaccurate, but that's what people think is accurate. And they have all sorts of other different models available to them. And what I like to tell my clients and the sellers is that it's almost impossible to underprice. I don't like to underprice, but it is almost impossible to underprice because supply and demand, the market will drive the price back up if you work the buyer frenzy a little accurately. But the market will, at least in Denver, Colorado, I'm not sure about where you are, the market will absolutely punish overpricing.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So I always caution against it. I've turned down a listing or two because they were adamant on a certain price that just was not going to do them any good.
No. So if you're supposed to be priced at 1.2 and you price at 1.5, you're going to sell for maybe $1 million. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're supposed to sell for 1.2 and you price around 1.15, 1.2, you might be able to push above 1.2 if you work at, and back in March, you probably could have pushed to 1.3, 1.4. Now you're
Yeah.
lucky to get the 1.2. But it's a matter of educating the seller.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you take a listing, do you schedule in a conversation or price reductions? How do you work that? Because right now, with things going 2 to 4 weeks, average days pending right now in the MLS, at least in May, was still 4 in Denver. But the average days on market is going up, and especially at higher price points, luxury price points. I've heard of homes taking a year to sell, but getting full ask. How do you work the pricing and price reduction conversation into your listing presentation?
Well, again, I'll use data to help paint the picture of the average days on market for prior homes that either eventually sold or at least pending. And I'll couch it with, a conversation around based on the number of showings that we have. And I differentiate showings with agents versus open house traffic, because those showings are a little bit more legitimate in terms of true interest. And generally I'll say, after about a dozen to 24 showings, kind of depending on the market, right? If it was way more of a seller's market, certainly after a dozen showings, we should at least have an offer. Maybe in our market, maybe 2 dozen. But if we don't have an offer in either between the combination of number of showings and 2 weeks to 21 days on market, then we have to talk about a shift in strategy, and typically that involves a price reduction.
And I agree, but 10 showings or 2 weeks, you should have a pretty good feel.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of pent up buyer demand. You have if your marketing is out there doing its job,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're pushing the ads, if you're pushing the marketing, you've got stunning visuals. If everything is out there, letting everybody know it's out there. And in our MLS, you can do a reverse prospect and send a push out directly. If the market's not responding, you can control price or marketing. If the marketing's good, price has probably got to change.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of reverse prospecting. I think that's just so brilliant to be able to understand who's looked, who's favorited, pick up the phone, call those agents, and encourage them to expose it to their buyers.
Yeah, tell us more about that, because some agents might not be aware of that when they're listening to the show.
Oh, they're definitely not aware of it, because when I'll call, they'll say, "What do you mean reverse prospecting?" So at least in our MLS, and it sounds like in yours as well, there's literally an opportunity to press a button associated with an individual listing, and it will generate, I wish it was a CSV file, but it will generate a list of the agents to whom that home has been sent, typically via a saved search that agent has set up for their client. And it will tell me on what date my listing was sent to one or more of their clients. If that client has actually favorited the home, I can see that. It will have a little heart next to it. And I'll just encourage them to reach back out to their clients to see who this home might appeal to, and encourage them to have them take a look. It's worked for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So on ours, it'll pull up sometimes 54 or sometimes 239 agents that have a saved search. And some of them are doing it just as a curiosity and staying in touch with the market. And a lot of those are also searching multiple homes and looking at multiple. So it's not like 254 people are interested in your house particularly,
right,
but at least it's on their radar. And so I'll copy and paste that into Excel. I'll trim it down, upload it into MailChimp. And then in MailChimp, which you can get a free account, I'll take like a little spinning GIF from my 3D Matterport model to catch people's attention. I'll put in a floor plan. I'll put in an aerial shot. And then I'll put a little every image I have linked back to the website, linked back to the listing. Everything links back, right? Schedule via showing time. Tell them how to get in there. And then I can look at the MailChimp and see who's engaged, who's interacted, who's looked at what image they clicked on, so that I know further levels of engagement with the listing.
I like the idea. We do that too. I have an assistant, thank God for her, that makes sure that all that stuff gets pushed out. We'll pull reverse prospecting list and send to any new folks that are on it from day to day, especially if we have an open house coming up. But I like the idea of making sure that what they receive is engaging enough to encourage them to click. So the GIFs, the spinnings, etc. I might have to rethink how I approach that. So thank you for that.
Right. We're all about learning from each other.
Absolutely.
Hey, speaking of learning from each other, I've learned a lot today from Gina. Go to freecoachingevent.com, freecoachingevent.com. And on September 6th, we are broadcasting a live event from Denver nationally via Microsoft Teams. We're actually holding it at Denver Microsoft headquarters, so it's appropriate I'm talking to someone from Seattle. But go to freecoachingevent.com. And from Denver Microsoft headquarters, we're going to be broadcasting Microsoft Teams, a big live event with 10 coaches. And if you watch this after September 6th, you can access the recording there. Gina, thank you so much. If people want to reach out to you and send you referrals, because they absolutely should, how do they reach you?
And they absolutely should. It'd be my pleasure to take care of them or their referrals. They can reach out to me via my website, GinaMadeya.com, or certainly through phone, 425-495-0926. It would be my privilege to help you meet your real estate goals.
Awesome. And if you're trying to reach me here in Denver, Colorado, it's 303-589-2320. Gina, thanks for giving us 10 minutes. Hope you guys had a good cup of coffee and learned something. Bye.
Thank you.